It's going to be a big day, so let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these characters and Comey before him. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats.
Well, yep, President of the United States, President reeling off win after win, including 2 yesterday with the crypto bill and the rescission of spending up to $9 billion. But his party's obsessed with the Epstein story, and Trump is not taking it well. We discuss.
Number 2.
It should not be lost that the President of the United States of America is using ICE as his own militarized force to engender and institute anxiety and fear.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, an epic fail in Chicago as the city falls apart, thinks ICE is the problem. ICE reality check as yet another agent is seriously hurt, rounding up the worst of the worst from coast to coast as Dems look to paint them, ICE, as the enemy. A new version of the defund the police.
Number 1.
I think he's a very personable, smart young man.
Zohran Mamdani is an incredible talent. It's hard not to be won over.
You have AOC and Zohran. That's a winning combo.
Really? Where? Where does that win? Is that the future of the Democratic Party? A Marxist, Zohran Mamdani, impresses Dems with his smile and socialism as he takes D.C. in an effort to ride to success in New York City in that mayoral race. Remember, he's got the Democratic nomination. Cuomo, Sliwa, and Adams jockey for the chance to take him down. We'll see how that goes. So who is this guy? Well, he decided yesterday to show up in D.C., okay? He's going to go to brunch. Fine. Got a few reporters here. It's big news. A lot of people are stunned that the leadership in the Democratic Party, like Jeffries, like Schumer, have not endorsed him. Governor Hochul not endorsed him. All Democrats, what's going on? What's the delay? 1 by 10? Why are you delaying? What's happening? Well, they have a brunch and they change venues. Quickly, the reporters are all out of place. They have to scramble to get there. What? They missed his entrance. And you know what he does? He sneaks out the back door. Why? Because when he shows up, he answers questions. And the answers he gives are horrendous, I think, for the country. Yet some socialist squad members love it, but the squad would never get elected nationally, and the party needs a standard bearer, and they might look at him. The same guys that show up for AOC and Bernie Sanders in their oligarchy tour are the ones that are supporting him. So who is this guy? Fascinating to find out. Mr. Defund the Police, send a social worker to domestic disputes, make domestic disputes like jaywalking tickets. I don't like capitalism. Here's Matt Slater, who works with him in the Albany Assembly. Cut 11.
I mean, a Mamdani win here is going to propel a communist agenda all across this country. And that's why AOC, who I grew up with, had brought him down to Washington, because Democrats all across the country are concerned not just about his radical agenda, but his radical record. If you look at what he's done in the Assembly, where I currently serve, he stood on the state legislature floor and he actually referred to his colleagues as his comrades. When you look at the legislation that he sponsored, it is right out of Karl Marx's playbook. And so I think Democrats across the country are very concerned about what this will mean for not just their own self, but but for the entire country.
And the weird thing is, he does answer questions, and they're not good answers in my view. They're terrible answers. But Matt Slater knows what he's about. Cut 14.
Do you think that he's somebody that would moderate their positions if he is elected into office? Sometimes you could be very idealistic until reality sets in.
I don't think so. And we saw his meeting recently with CEOs here in New York City, and he was very clear that he's not walking back his policies or his beliefs. And so he's already showing us the fact that he is an ideologue. He has no intention of walking back his radical policy whatsoever. And yes, he can be very charming. And, you know, when he's here, he can charm the birds out of the trees. But at the end of the day, he has to be able to perform, and he has to be able to deliver for New York. And that agenda, that communist agenda, and the president called him a communist the other day, and I think he's 100% right, that just won't fly.
It won't. And he doesn't like capitalism. I keep referring to that. And the thing is, they want to just gloss over it. We had Rowe on today. He says, oh, he's a charming guy, he's a good guy, and I'm going to support him. Well, he's a socialist. Yeah, I'm not. Well, why are you supporting him then? I mean, John Fetterman, Joe Manchin, moderate Democrats would never support him. These other liberal Democrats have not said they're going to support him yet. They can't figure it out. Right now, the polls are tightening up. But he does have a lot of money behind him, and now he's got the establishment behind him because he won the primary. Here's some Democrats weighing in after the meeting yesterday. Note the second one. The first one's Debbie Dingell from Michigan. The second one is a congressman from California, Mark Takano. Cut to.
You know what? Donald Trump and he both get out and they talk to people and they listen to people and they understand how people feel. And he's using social media the way that Donald Trump has.
What I see is someone addressing cost of living issues. And I think if you were to run these Zohran Mamdani commercials blind in front of self-identified conservatives, part of the MAGA base, I think they would find Mamdani very, very appealing.
Takano went on to say that he's a capitalist with a small c. No, he's not. You could say whatever you want, but the problem is he will tell you the opposite. So he's telling you he's proud of this. I was just speaking to someone who was in London, and they said they are all excited about the mayor race. Why? Because London's got almost full Muslim. Nothing wrong with Muslims, but I just don't think that Sharia law should be part of New York City. And I'm pretty sure it's little by little taking over enclaves of this historic city of London. I don't want that here. No interest in that. So I'm amazed. And we'll talk about that. And the thing is, it's a bigger story. The bigger story is, where's the Democratic Party? You got Barack Obama out there saying be more understanding with boys and men in our society. Him saying that we got too politically correct for a while. Good luck with that. No one's listening. Reince Priebus has looked at this as an analyst and said, wow, this is a big story. This is a big story. Cut 8.
They don't lack the courage to at least call out global intifada. I mean, some of this stuff is just, it's just common sense. But the real problem is that they're the only ones that can get a crowd, right? So here's the thing. Extreme economic leftism is pretty new in modern American politics. I mean, Occupy Wall Street, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and he's couching all of this in sort of this left populistic type language.
So there you go. He's embracing it. They're just trying to hide him, and they don't know what to do with him. We'll watch that story. So the other thing is President Trump's Republican Party. Not only did they get the big, beautiful bill, they're about to pass cryptocurrency rules and regulations, which, listen, I'm not the biggest crypto guy, can't really explain it, but the President of the United States says there's a huge revenue stream possibility here. He has David Sachs and other experts around him as czars. And he says, let's get some organization that allows it to grow responsibly. They want it. Great. Then he gets this other rescission package, second one in history, where you looked at a budget and said, let's eliminate some spending after it passed. $9 billion. Extremely tough, but they did it. That's another victory. But Donald Trump is angry, and he's angry because his own party is obsessed with the Epstein story because they didn't get the paperwork they wanted, the list that may or not exist, and the president's getting a lot of questions about it. And the thing is, these are the people like Theo Von and other podcasters that, he is bonded with, impressed, and now they're deciding that he might not be worth it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a sitting congresswoman, one of the most radical on either side that the president has defended. Cut 27.
Will you ask Attorney General Mamdani to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
Whatever's credible, she can release it. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. It's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone, and all it is the certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook.
And the Democrats are suddenly interested in this story that revolves around mostly Democrats. I mean, this is Bill Clinton and his ilk. This is Bill Gates and others. Yeah, Trump and Epstein, they were both in Florida at the time. If you think that there was anything on Trump and Epstein that Joe Biden and his administration didn't bring forward, you are crazy. So here's Trump. He's ticked off at his own side. People like Steve Bannon and others. Cut 28.
But I lost a lot of faith in certain people, I lost, because they got duped by the Democrats. The Democrats are good for nothing. They've done a terrible job. They almost destroyed our country. If I didn't get elected, all these numbers you're hearing about, they found $25 billion and another 25 is coming in and hundreds of billions of dollars is pouring into our country.
He's ticked off. And he's letting them know from The people that, they said that he had a wide net when you get RFK in there and J.D. Vance, two people that disagree, and you have Marco Rubio, more traditional Republican, usually Secretary of State, maybe your MVP, someone very different from, let's say, Tulsi Gabbard. That was a plus. But now we're seeing, as soon as there's a bit of tension about, now, should Pam Bondi have said, hey, I got this, I have the Epstein list on my desk and you guys can all have it, and made copies and sent it out and there's nothing in there, and then says that's it. Maybe the way it's handled wasn't great. But if you think a special counsel is going to be launched, you're nuts. If you think that Pam Bondi is going to do a special counsel on herself, you only do that if it's a conflict of interest. There's no conflict of interest. You think she was involved with Epstein? So if there's anything out there, put it out. But I'm with the President of the United States 100% on this. As Britt Hume told us yesterday, I'm going to take a time out and tell me if you think I'm wrong. You think you want to know more about Epstein? You think the president let you down? I'm actually too interested in consequential things. I talked to the head of the EU today, their trade council, and that deal will put millions of dollars in America's pockets, raise the market through the roof, help with all your mutual funds if that's you, or your 401k. I think that's next. One of the big stories for the President of the United States, and I think one of the great success stories, is the way they were able to take out 3 nuclear sites, as well as the Israelis, with great surveillance and on the ground intel, was able to do tremendous damage to the Iranian regime. Alireza Jafarzadeh is somebody who's with the deputy director of the Western Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. He also involved with the MEK, which is a group that really wants to see if they could get that country, I guess, out of the hands of the Ayatollah and everybody else. And Alireza joins us now. Ali, welcome back. What's the state of Iran right now?
Well, first of all, thank you so much to be on your show again, as we've done this many years.
Great hope of overturning, but the Ayatollah seems to have some wherewithal.
Well, first of all, what was on display in the past few weeks was the absolute weakness and vulnerability of the Iran regime. Remember, this is a regime that claimed that they control the whole Middle East. They're suppressing their own population, and they always boasted about the power of the Revolutionary Guards, their allies, their proxies in the region. And this weakness was preceded by the severe weakness of their proxies, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis, the Shia militias. Their biggest ally in Syria, Assad, is gone. And also remember that we have had several rounds of major uprisings in Iran since 2018. People chanting death to the dictator. They want an end to the rule of the clerics. Death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader, meaning that they're rejecting the past monarchy dictatorship. They're opposed to the current theocracy. They're looking for future. That's what the real story is in Iran. People vying for a much better future.
And now they're just trying to arrest and hang everybody suspected of collaborating with Israel. They seem totally freaked out by what Israel is able to do in a short period of time.
Well, I think what you see now is the very paranoid state the regime is. They're afraid of their own population. They're afraid that if the next round of uprisings come, it will happen in a totally different circumstances. And people feel they're a lot more empowered. The regime's weakness is on display. And the main focus of the regime is on those who are fighting. The Revolutionary Guards are standing up to them, the ones who exposed the nuclear sites of Iran. You mentioned the MEK. Ironically, just 2 days ago, 3 members of the MEK who were arrested a few years ago, they were sentenced to death. As we speak, at least 15 members of the MEK are on the death row. And the regime is increasingly focusing on that.
And the MEK, how would you describe them?
Well, the MEK is the main organization in Iran that has been fighting the religious dictatorship ruling Iran under the mullahs. They also were opposed to the Shah's dictatorship, the Savak, the secret police, the single-party rule of Savak. And they oppose the Islamic extremist mentality of the Ayatollahs. They're Muslims, but they are vehemently opposed to the mentality of the mullahs. They have women in the leadership. The past 9 successive secretaries general of the MEK have all been female, and they're very inspiring to the population. But the biggest threat to the mullahs, because the ideology of the mullahs is based on misogyny, and they are the force for change in Iran. They're part of the coalition of the National Council of Resistance of Iran that acts as a parliament in exile. And
here he is, the Bahraini prime minister yesterday with Trump, who was one of the first. They are the first country to sign on to the Abraham Accords. Let's listen.
Well, I definitely believe that the volatility of the situation has been reduced, and we didn't know where it was going to go on the Sunday. We were very glad when we found out on the Monday. Let me put it that way. And should the Iranians want to negotiate, I believe the ball's in their court. That is the true reality of where we stand today. They are the ones that stand to benefit from a negotiation.
And they do. They want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. We're in no rush because, we said we could have made a deal. They should have made a deal. And then we bombed the hell out of their various places. We're in no rush, but if they want to negotiate, we're here.
You think they should negotiate? Do you think they will? If they're smart, they would, because they could get relief from the sanctions and start, they are an evil regime, but they would start rebuilding their economy.
The mullahs have no choice. They came to the negotiating table out of absolute desperation. They, of course, their agenda is different. They want to drag the issue. They want to buy time so that the snapback mechanism at the United Nations Security Council, which would put back all the sanctions on the regime, would expire in October. So they're playing games. They don't want to give up their nuclear weapons program, but they don't want to be facing a situation that they would face much harsher consequences. So negotiations for them is a means to buy time, not to end their nuclear weapons program. And that's why I think it's so important for the United States to push on that and tell them, as they said, if you don't come to the table and accept the terms, you're going to first see the snapback of the sanctions on the regime. That's a huge thing. And then I think the next step at the end of the day, given the behavior of the Iran regime, you need to see change in the country. And of course, that's the responsibility of the people of Iran. And the president of the United States has correctly said that the U.S. will not be involved in that. It's the responsibility of the people of Iran. There's no need for boots on the ground or appropriation of money. There are, resistance units in Iran.
You think they should have killed the president?
I know there were reports about the attack, that he was wounded and all of that. But at the end of the day, Brian, you have to see a change to the system ruling Iran. And, Iran is a big country with 90 million population, very large. And even in a country like Syria is much smaller, much weaker. Change came from within, on the ground. That's where the focus should be, empowering, creating space for those who are fighting the Revolutionary Guards, recognizing the right of the people of Iran, those resistance units of the MEK, to confront the Revolutionary Guards. There is no other way to bring about change in the country. You can weaken it, you can build pressure on it, you can hold them accountable for all the things they have done, but at the end of the day, the force for change is coming from Iran.
Right. So how weak are they right now? How much weaker are they now than they were 3 weeks ago?
Well, first of all, they relied heavily on their nuclear program because that was the leverage they were using. It's the guarantee for their survival. That has been badly shattered. And I know there are a lot of discussions about, how much damage and all of that. I think all of that is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that, there's no way in the world that the regime could actually get back to where they were 2 months ago. They used a very special historic circumstances over the past 2 decades to build the program and come to here, relying heavily on the policy of appeasement pursued by Europe and several administrations here in the United States. The world didn't know a lot of things, even though we exposed all the major nuclear sites of Iran, but that policy of appeasement helped the regime. That era has changed, and we need to make sure that the regime cannot get back to where they were, cannot benefit from the things they benefited before. We need to also understand that this regime is much more weaker than it was, 20 some years ago. You need to understand also the population in Iran is on the side of the Western world, and they want to see change. They reject the regime. Nothing can rally the people behind the flag, and that's why that's where the focus should be. And take advantage of the weakness of the regime, their vulnerability. Reach out to the organized opposition. Interestingly, the movement is led by a female leader, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi. 5 days after the attacks on June 18, she was at the European Parliament. She told the European parliamentarians that 21 years ago, I was here, and I told you that appeasement will get you to war. And I offered a third option, which is relying on the people of Iran to bring about change. And I repeat that again today.
But they don't have the guns, and the regime has the guns. So what are they going to do?
Well, at the end of the day, when you have the will of the population, they're able to get the guns. They are able to overpower the Revolutionary Guards, as we have seen in the cases. But they haven't done it yet, right?
Well, they haven't done it since '79. We see the uprisings, but we don't see the execution because they don't have the weapons.
Well, remember that in the past 4 decades, there has been a policy of appeasement that constantly created space for the regime and closed the space on the opposition. Remember in 1997, when Khatami, the so-called moderate president, took office, he tried to reach out to the United States. That was Bill Clinton era. And he asked the United States to designate the very same movement that we talked about, the MEK, on the terrorist list. And that's what they did. So the MEK had to fight for 15 years to get off the list. Why would you want to harm an organized resistance who is wanting to bring about change and help the regime, give him pallets of cash? That has to change, and that has significantly changed over the past few months.
Alireza, best of luck. Hopefully we'll get a regime change in our lifetime because something has to change in that region. And I think everyone is exposed now, Iran. They're not the big behemoth everyone thought they were. Alireza, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Brian. And just think about a free, democratic, non-nuclear republic Iran. What a difference it will make.
It would be great.
For the
Let's bring in Sean Davis, CEO and co-founder of the Federalist. Sean, are you shocked the Democrats are rallying around the hottest politicians are Bernie Sanders, AOC, and now Mamdani?
I'm shocked that the Democrat Party is going hard commie left. I wish I could say I'm shocked. I think it's sadly predictable, given the trajectory of that party over the last 10 to 15 years.
But you would think that they would have learned and said, well, Trump is talking about the border, to get men out of women's sports, talked about getting rid of the pronouns and stopping the political correctness. They would read the room a little bit and say, okay, maybe we're too far over here.
Yeah, I guess there's like two different directions you can go to grab that section of populists. You could come back to the middle, start paying attention to blue-collar workers, caring about the things that people who work with their hands for a living care about. Or I guess you could go the other direction and go full commie. And what's interesting about this, you've got, Mamdani, ethnic guy, family isn't from here. And you'd think, oh, well, that'll attract a lot of the immigrants in New York. But it's actually the exact opposite. When you looked at the results, it was all of the really wealthy white liberals in New York City who loved Mamdani, and it was the blue collar immigrants who were down with Cuomo. So to me it shows that the Democrat Party is being controlled by a bunch of highly left wing, wealthy white people, which is just bizarre that they're going in this direction. I guess their guilt compels them to do stupid things so they can feel like they're actually looking out for the little guy.
But they actually don't know what to do with this guy. Jeffries, Schumer, Hochul. Listen to Hochul yesterday. I'll play some of it. She's trying to figure out something nice to say. Cut 6.
I am not saying he said certain things, but when he's asked to take a position that affirmatively rejects that, up until now, that has been declined. Okay, so you can read into that anything you want, but I would say that there has been an effort now, knowing that after I've had conversations, and I'm not the first to raise it with him, that this is language that is, extremely hurtful, painful for people in the Jewish community to hear that he understood that, and I'll give him credit for acknowledging that. And seems like yesterday he was working to explain what his real feelings are. So I'll leave it at that.
Is this a joke? Working to explain what his real feelings are? His real feelings, we already know his real feelings. Globalize the intifada is something he believes. He says, I don't use it, but I understand the sentiment. He's working towards explaining it.
Yeah, he said he wanted to globalize the intifada. He said he wants to defund the police. There's no ambiguity about what the guy believes. And the problem that the Democrat leaders have is that what they've traditionally done is they like to have the Howard Dean and Bernie Sanders and AOC types fire up the base, and they can use them to collect those people, but they're never actually going to let them have any power. And they've been able to do that because, at least at the national level, they've been able to bring someone in who's more of a Democrat leadership type to kind of just, they'll win, they'll pat Bernie Sanders on the head, they'll say, hey, we'll let you stay around, but obviously you're not going to be in charge of anything. And the problem they have with Mamdani is that Cuomo was so radioactive. Cuomo was supposed to be the type of Democrat politician to beat the commie left candidate, but he failed. And so now they're stuck with this guy who's winning, and they can't trash him because they don't want Adams to win. So they're completely stuck. As a non-New Yorker, and I'm sorry, I find it hilarious, mainly because I'm not going to have to deal with the consequences. But it's fascinating to watch the Democrat Party and the commies basically catch they're the dog who caught the car now. And Democrat leadership has no idea what to do with it.
They really don't. But it's interesting. Let's change gears a little bit. Donald Trump is this guy who's on every detail. I mean, if there's an election for a party chairmanship in a city, he will keep calling up. He'll be calling up to find out who's winning and why and who's best for us. Now he's saying, in order to keep the House, he's saying, I want to redistrict Texas and gerrymander Texas. And now in turn, California's saying maybe we'll redistrict California. Can you foresee a situation where Texas is redistricted to make it more Republican?
Oh, absolutely. And especially after the games that were played with the last census. We know they're always playing games. They're monkeying around with the data so that, the Democrats who run these agencies can make sure their states get more people. I think the Republican Party has probably been disadvantaged to the tune of 10 or 15 seats just from census games. And so when you have an opportunity in a state that you totally control, like Texas, of course they're going to go in and try and reapportion to get the most seats possible. That's politics. And I get that people get mad about that. If California wants to do it, they can have at it. I mean, there's hardly any Republicans left there anymore. But, New York did it to the Republicans. California does it. This is politics. It's the nature of the beast. I genuinely don't understand why people get so mad or pretend to be so mad about it. Happens all the time. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
So California also had found out yesterday that the president is going to pull the plug on their high-speed rail. They have not laid 1 mile of track. They've pulled the plug on $4 billion of unspent federal funds from California. Trump says it's an ill-conceived, unnecessary project and total waste of taxpayer money. Says over the last 16 years, roughly $15 billion spent. Not one high-speed track has been laid. Sean Duffy said this is California's fault. Governor Newsom and the complicit Democrats have enabled this waste for years. Now coming back is Gavin Newsom. He said Trump wants to hand China to the future and abandon the Central Valley. We won't let them. With projects like the Texas high-speed rail failing to take off. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I don't have a clue what the China talk is. I mean, I've been hearing high-speed rail talk for like 20 years since I started working out of college, 20, 30 years. It never works. The U.S. is just not built for it. It's too big. We're too spread out. And yet it's always this pipe dream, generally from people who know that they're going to get a free lunch from the federal government because it's the federal government and the taxpayer paying for all of it. And good for Trump for pulling the plug on this thing. If you can't lay a single track after 10 or 15 or 20 years and you spent 10 or 15 billion dollars, pull the plug. Maybe let's just make gas more affordable so people can drive back and forth to where they want to go.
That would be very interesting. Do you think that Gavin Newsom's made some gains in his South Carolina tour?
I don't know. The guy, I have such a hard time watching him because I feel like I'm watching just a stone cold sociopath who will lie about anything, whether it's that tour, his new podcast, him on the Sean Ryan podcast. the guy's like a Joker-esque movie villain to me. So it's hard for me to say whether he's gained anything or not, because whenever I see him, I just see a stone cold liar who will say anything.
I find him totally inauthentic. It's going to be interesting to see if someone has the guts to stand up like Senator Fetterman and just say, hey, by the way, that left-wing mayoral candidate in New York City, I can't subscribe to that. We'll see what happens. I won't be doing it. Jeffries and Schumer will put himself in the box to do it. But if I'm running for president, that'll be one way to separate myself. I'd love to see it. And lastly, do you believe that the Republicans are right to stay on top of the auto pen story with the Bidens? Yesterday, the chief of staff for the first lady, who had all this influence, same with everyone calls it the long time, Anthony Burnell, the work husband of Jill, who had an outweighed influence on the administration. All he did is take the fifth. The doctor takes the fifth. Are they making any progress?
Oh, I think it's a huge scandal. And I think the fact that you have these people taking the fifth and that they're retaining criminal defense lawyers, I think the House and the DOJ absolutely need to keep going after it. And it's not because we want to go after Joe Biden or we don't care about his very serious mental and physical health problems. It's that you cannot, in a democratic republic like we have a cabal of people who weren't elected to do anything take over the powers of the presidency and do things under color of law with an auto pen if the person who actually was elected, in this case Joe Biden, didn't know anything about it. And I think that New York Times story this week was devastating for Biden and the people who work for him, because they admitted, oh yeah, we made changes, we signed off on stuff without him knowing it. And if you read the transcript of the interview where Biden says, oh, I knew about everything, I don't think the guy knew where he was when he was giving that interview. It was a bunch of gobbledygook.
Right. He said the story is contradicted. He said, I told people, he never says I laid out the criteria for them to do it. He says he knew everything. On every single one. There's no way he knew 4,000 pardons. There's no way he could have signed them. I don't think so. And number two is he let out some double murderers.
Yeah, it's horrible. And they actually admitted in there, he didn't even know the names of the people whose pardons he was allegedly signing off on. The staff admitted they were going and making changes and using the auto pen to sign off on pardons and clemency grants that he never approved. So this is a massive scandal, and it's not a scandal for Joe Biden himself. He was the president. It's a scandal for everyone under him who is seizing the powers of the presidency illegally without the person who was actually elected knowing anything about it. And everyone knows he didn't know everything that was going on under him.
Sean, thanks so much. Sean Davis of the Federalist, appreciate the time. Nice for you to zoom in.
Dario Mondi, the head of Anthropic, says just because it's going to be so revolutionary and so disruptive, you're going to see a massacre of white-collar jobs, the people who do, all the routine things in accounting, in law, in even consulting. What do you think?
I would say if the world runs out of ideas, then productivity gains translates to job loss. But over the course of the last 300 years, 100 years, 60 years, even in the era of computers, not only did productivity go up, employment also went up. Now, the reason for that is because if we have an abundance of ideas, if we were more productive, we could realize that better. Now, of course, in a world of zero-sum games, if you have no more ideas and all you want to do is this, then productivity drives down. It results in job loss.
So that is Jensen Huang being interviewed by Fareed Zakaria, I think, at the Aspen Institute, or he's talking on CNN, I should say. And he's talking about how, with the AI's coming, everyone's excited about it, but what's it going to mean for job loss? Well, a lot of it comes to a lot of people are going to be coming for the coders, according to Mike Rowe. If they're not coming from the welders, the plumbers, the steam fitters. And it went on to say, and Mike Rowe said over at Aspen, that Larry Fink of BlackRock or Blackstone or something black says we need 500,000 electricians in the next couple of years, and that's not hyperbole. That is music to the ears. And I told you so has to be going through Mike Rowe's head. He is Mike Rowe from the mikeroweWORKS Foundation and the host of People You Should Know. Mike, what was it like at the Aspen Institute? They got you to wear a tie.
Did you really just conflate BlackRock and Blackstone and then shrug it off as if a couple of trillion-dollar companies are interchangeable?
Yeah, I think in retrospect.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Right.
Yeah, you also conflated the Aspen Institute with the Energy AI Summit, which just took place in Pittsburgh. And it's an understandable conflation because every time you turn around, a room full of billionaires is convening somewhere in the country to talk about the existential threat that you and I have been discussing now for like 10 years vis-a-vis our workforce. So, look, I'm not one to take victory laps, but Brian, the headlines have caught up to us in a way that is absolutely undeniable. Larry Fink at the Aspen Institute addressed a big crowd of swells, and he was crystal clear. 500,000 electricians just in the $12 trillion portfolio that he oversees, right? These guys have a whole different look at what's going on with our workforce. Now, yesterday and the day before in Pittsburgh, President Trump showed up along with an enormous crowd of people who raised $92 billion in the room to invest in building data centers, which, as Jensen Wang basically just described, are actually AI factories. This is an enormous play by Pennsylvania and Senator McCormick and Fetterman, both of whom came together in a nonpartisan way to get behind this push. And I got invited simply to remind the crowd that creating jobs is very different than creating enthusiasm for those jobs. And I essentially begged them to carve off a little chunk of that money that was raised and use it to promote the opportunities at hand. So basically, it's the same drum I've been beating for the last 17 years.
So people that are panicking, you said, as you sent to me, they told you to, hey, if I think it was Hillary Clinton that told a bunch of coal miners, learn to code.
Yes.
And you said they're coming for the coders. They're not coming from the welders and the steam fitters. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, actually got an applause line. We were at the Carnegie Mellon Institute. I mean, this is like a real pinnacle in an institution of higher learning. And these guys got the memo too. We have for the last 30 years been elevating our white collar portion of the workforce at the expense of the blue collar portion. And we have been sort of intimating that the robots and the technology that is certainly on the horizon, if not already here, is coming for the blue collar jobs. It's turning out to be something quite opposite. It's the white collar positions. I'm painting with a broad brush, but paralegal and anything creative, writing in general, coding, these are looking very wobbly right now. The AI is going to come for those. And I agree with what Jensen was saying. There's disruption and there's going to be a result, I think, that's impossible to accurately predict long term. But short term, we are entering the golden age of plumbing, steam fitting, pipe fitting, welding, HVAC. Those jobs are not going to be impacted by AI, and those are the jobs that are being created in Pennsylvania right now, and those are the opportunities that parents and guidance counselors ought to be zeroing in on.
Are they? Have you noticed a change? I know you want the change. You've been calling for the change. You predicted it. But have you noticed a change bringing vocational training back to schools? Have you noticed more people trying to apply for scholarships at mikeroweWORKS?
Yeah, and that's truly a micro example, right? And it's anecdotal. I mean, my foundation is modest. We've given away about $13 million in these work ethic scholarships, and this year we have 10 times the applicants that we did a year before. And if you look only at that, Brian, you could conclude, hey, you're killing it. And modesty aside, we are in my little world. In MacroWorks, in the United States of America, I'd be ringing the alarm bell if I had one right now, because not a week goes by where I don't hear from somebody like the American Submarine Industrial Base, who needs 140,000 welders and electricians. 140,000. The automotive industry needs 80,000 in collision repair and technicians. Energy, Don't even get me started, man. It's like 500,000. The numbers are mind-boggling, and it's awkward to talk about this, especially at an event when I'm sitting there next to the president and we're announcing all of these new jobs that are about to be created. And I'm just sitting there biting my lip going, look, somebody has to point out the fact that we have 500,000 open positions in manufacturing right now, today. What are we going to do if we create 2 million manufacturing jobs? Where are you going to get the workers? So, look, I'm going to testify on your show this weekend on the TV and everything, and I'm probably going to rant and rave a little bit because I think this is the missing piece in all the conversations around job creation, going all the way back to Obama in 2009 when he promised 3 million shovel-ready jobs in the Highway Infrastructure Act to a country that was conspicuously ambivalent about picking up a shovel. It's the same thing now. You can't get, like, we're just clinging to this Depression-era artifact that says, oh, you want to solve unemployment? Just create more opportunity. Sorry, there's 7.6 million open positions in the country right now. We don't have an opportunity problem. And while we might have a skills gap, we also have a will gap. And if we don't hit that thing head on, we're going to just keep pushing the boulder up the hill, I'm afraid.
Well, not only that, too, I think that the stat is there are 7 million people eligible to work that aren't working, because that was the Medicaid conversation I was just having with that big bill that President Trump just passed. He's like, well, the problem is a lot of people are just getting insurance and they're refusing to work. So we have to have a work requirement to get people moving.
Yeah, look, you're going to piss a lot of people off with that because it's going to get very political very quickly, and your friends on the right are going to tell you that this is a function of laziness and the human condition, and your friends on the left are going to say the jobs don't pay enough money and you're dealing with greedy, rapacious capitalists. Look, all I can tell you, again, anecdotally, mikeroweWORKS has assisted 2,500 people. The majority are making six figures. Many of them, they get a CDL license, and 3 weeks later, they're making 120 grand driving a truck. 6 months later, they're making 150 grand welding. So I tend to think, with regard to that stat, which, by the way, comes from a book called Men Without Work by Nicholas Eberstadt that your listeners will love. Are they listeners or viewers, Brian? I can't keep it straight. Am I on TV or both?
We got both because
All
we're
right.
zooming.
How about that?
Yeah.
Look, it's a terrific book. And what it really does is it digs into something that's never happened in our country before, at least not in peacetime, where you've got 7 million able-bodied men who are not only not working, but not looking for work. That is amazing. And I'm not in either camp. I'm not here to say they're lazy, and I'm not here to say the opportunity. I'm just saying it's a real number. And isn't it interesting how 7.5 million open jobs kind of sort of correlates a bit with 7 million
Yes.
men who are not really interested in dealing with that? So throw in immigration,
right?
Throw in all the other hot button topics. And in the end, it's just math. And finally, here's the most chilling number. 7.6 million open jobs is a big number. How about 5 and 2? 5 tradesmen retire every year and 2 replace them. That's the ratio. 5 out, 2 in. It's been that way for a decade. So you're dealing with bad math, you're dealing with downward demographic pressure, you're dealing with all the unintended consequences of yanking shop class out of high school, and now the chickens have come home to roost. And guys like Larry Fink at BlackRock and Blackstone and Wells Fargo, I get calls every week now from big companies that don't have any direct skin in the game vis-a-vis blue-collar frontline workers, but they are highly motivated to see this problem corrected, because if we don't do it, our workforce will remain out of balance, and now we don't have enough submarines.
So I know. In fact, we have to go outside our country with these contracts because we have to rapidly build ships and submarines. We do have that advantage right now of China. I don't know for how much longer. But Mike, when it came up in Pittsburgh, at Aspen, around the country, have they connected the two. So, for example, we need 500,000 electricians, but did they just leave, or did they say, this is my plan to get them? They like to plan for the future, getting rare earth and things to that nature to build the machines. But does the president realize this? Have people connected the dots?
Look, I wouldn't deign to look into the mind of the president. I think he surely must have run some sort of calculus. I'll tell you, I think part of the solution is going to come from areas nobody's talking about. I met with a company in Pittsburgh called Impossible Minerals. These guys are going to be huge. They're mining. They've got contracts in place to mine the seafloor in an environmentally responsible way. But the resources that we're going to need are down there. And I'd never heard of them before. And I think they're about to become a giant thing. I don't ultimately know what the solution is going to be here, but I'll just repeat, it's awkward because so many of us, especially our elected officials, they don't want to look into the lens and talk about a will gap. They don't want to talk about declining birth rates. They don't want to, because it's just not flattering to our country, and it doesn't get people elected, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So I just find myself constantly in this weird position of saying, of course I was rooting for Obama with 3 million shovel-ready jobs. Of course I'm rooting for Trump with 3 million new jobs in manufacturing with all this reshoring. But I just hope to God somebody somewhere steps back and says, look, the opportunities alone are not enough to inspire, amplify, and motivate this generation to run toward them. And the money's not enough either. If it were that simple, they would offer more money and people would beat a pathway to their door. But I'm here to tell you that's not what I've seen. So there's something missing, and it has to do with PR, communication, messaging. And I'll leave you with this because I know you got to jump. But when these guys ask me where the skilled workers are, we've looked everywhere, Mike, says the Maritime Institute. We can't find them. Do you know where they are? I say yes. They say where? I say the 8th grade. That's where they are.
All right.
That's where you got to go get them.
And by the way, the Secretary of Education should be putting that back in. Just like pursuing anti-Semitism, we should be pushing for vocational training. Metal shop and wood shop. Mike Rowe, thanks so much. I'll talk to you on Sunday night, 10 o'clock.